I guess
Well, good morning. I see y'all ate your Wheaties this morning. Thank you. We appreciate that introduction. The First Lady and I are honored to be at Seminole High School. In full disclosure, I went to Dunedin High School, and back in my day, coming here wasn't always the best because you guys had a pretty good baseball team, and I think you still do. So thanks for hosting us. I want to thank Mike Grego, Superintendent, and Pinellas for being here and for all the great work he's done, as well as your principal, Jane Lucas, Seminole High School. So thanks for hosting us. We've also got some other great folks who you'll be able to hear from, so I'll introduce them at the appropriate time. I saw a couple of representatives. I think I saw Chris Latvala and Linda Cheney. I don't know if Senator Roussan's here. I didn't see him, but if they are, welcome, and thank you guys for what you're doing. We're here to be able to announce a new initiative that the state of Florida is launching to help steer our youth away from substance abuse. We want people to live healthy and productive lives. So the Facts Your Future will be launching turnkey programs for middle and high school students that will be used by educators across Florida to empower our students with the knowledge they need to live drug-free lives and to empower their own future. I'm here and honored as always to be joined by my wife and Florida's great First Lady, Casey DeSantis. She's always fought for Florida's youth, and since stepping into the role as First Lady, she's reaffirmed her efforts to make sure that all young Floridians have the ability to thrive. And she's worked on things like resiliency and character development, maternal health, always been passionate about creating a society in which every Floridian has the opportunity to lead productive lives. The one thing, particularly people who are in middle and high school, the one thing that is the most frequent reason why people's lives get derailed and why they don't end up fulfilling their potential is because of substance abuse. Once children and young adults go down the rabbit hole of substance abuse, their lives become worse for themselves and their families, and we want people to be able to understand that and to be able to make the best decision possible. Now, the one good thing about Florida, according to the National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics, teenagers in Florida right now are about 5% less likely to have used drugs in the last month than the average American teen. But there's more work to be done to arm Florida's youth with the facts about the dangers of substance abuse and to dissuade them from making self-destructive decisions and wrecking their lives. And so the First Lady's worked very hard to put together a new way to address this. So here we're launching the Facts Your Future initiative. The Department of Health, in partnership with the Department of Education, is investing $5 million into this campaign to educate and provide students with the tools and knowledge to make the best decisions for themselves and for their futures. So the Facts Your Future will engage Florida's youth in the very important conversation about the long-term and often devastating effects of substance abuse, in which this initiative we're taking another step towards protecting and educating our children. Peers, parents, teachers, healthcare providers, and other authority figures in our kids' lives all have a role to play in fostering productive, impactful conversations about avoiding substance abuse. And that's why this initiative will start in schools, a place where our kids spend so much of their time, and will provide schools with the framework to put on innovative assemblies tailored to engage today's students. I want to again thank the First Lady for all her work on this program. Because of her efforts, I'm confident that more of Florida's youth will be instilled with the knowledge and confidence to live healthy, productive, and drug-free lives. And with that, I would like to call up the First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis.
Are you enjoying yourself so far, taking a break from classes and being here, I think? That's awesome. He is super excited. He gets an A+ for effort for being super excited. I'm very humbled and very honored and happy to be here for obviously a lot of reasons. And this has been a long time coming. Really, I was with Cheryl Flema is going to be coming up in a second. We launched this in 2019. And looking back on that, I was pregnant with our third child at the time, and now she's almost 20 months. And I have a almost 5-year-old who you might notice will start dancing more and more the longer this press conference goes on. And then we've also got a 3-year-old. But this is really very special to be putting $5 million into a curriculum and a public messaging campaign that someday my children are going to see and you guys are going to see. And hopefully it will empower you with the facts to be able to make good decisions in life. So you'll be able to see, some people say it's just say no, but here's why. Empowering you with the ability to make the right decisions. And like I said, it really boils down into two main components. One is a public messaging campaign, and I'm excited because the people who put together Tobacco Free Florida are going to be putting together this. And if you've ever seen their ads on TV, they're very compelling, and they almost empower you again to make the right decisions. And then the other side of this is curriculum, and we'll get into that in just a second. But first, I want to show you guys a little bit of a video of what the good folks from Tobacco Free Florida are going to be starting to preview, and eventually you guys will start to see more and more of, and eventually you'll start to see more and more of it in a public setting. Take a look.
Suffering grows in silence, and everybody knows someone that's struggling with addiction. So let's help that someone today, because that someone might get high tonight for the last time.
Unfortunately, a lot of these low-end or gateway drugs are leading to serious issues, not only at home, but at school, and then eventually they end up, in the custody of law enforcement.
Best by having examples of what they do not want to become. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so the other part of this is going to be, and we'll talk about, is curriculum that are going to be provided to the school districts, obviously free of charge. And the most important thing is the context and perspective that it's going to give you as students to be able to make the right decisions. So you're going to hear from parents who have lost loved ones, unfortunately, to substance abuse. You're going to listen to peers who can have that relatable experience of making decisions and why it affected their lives. You'll listen and hear from recovering addicts and why they wish they would have made different decisions. And if they were in your seats right now, why they would tell you to make those decisions. The law enforcement component of it too, because at the end of the day, there are ramifications to using drugs, and there's a component to it that law enforcement can bring into the conversation, and then the medical side, which is the empowering side. So when you see a picture of somebody who used meth versus somebody who doesn't, you can see drastic differences in their physical appearance, and then you can make the decision and say, listen, it's not the right thing to do, and here's why. And here's things like high levels of THC, what that does to a developing brain, and what that can do to you later in life, and why you want to make, again, the right decision. So again, so happy to be here and so excited for this $5 million investment, and thank you guys for taking the time to come here today. It means a lot. Thank you.
So we're joined here today by Floridians whose lives have been impacted by drug use. First, we have Lori and Mark Serra, whose son Matthew attended Seminole High, was energetic, athletic, but became addicted to painkillers following a back injury. His life was tragically cut short, and he died of a prescription drug overdose. And following this heartbreaking loss, the Serras worked with the legislature to pass a prescription drug monitoring plan for Florida. and there's nothing more painful for a parent than to lose a child. Lori and Mark, the state of Florida, and myself and the First Lady offer you our heartfelt condolences. I thank you for what you've been able to do to make Florida a better place, and I'm in awe of your resiliency, and we're really, really fortunate that you have agreed to join forces with the Facts Your Future. So please come up here and share your story.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, Mrs. DeSantis, and Dr. Grego for valuing our students. Being here brings back a flood of memories for us. My wife and I shared a blended family. 3 of our 6 children graduated from Seminole High School. Matthew, our oldest son, was a state-ranked freestyle swimmer, and in fact, his name can be found on some of the championship swim trophies in your lobby. Matt was a great athlete, a strong student, and someone with a lot of friends. After high school, Matt went to Virginia Military Institute, where he was captain of the college swim team. He graduated from VMI and aspired to go on to law school to become an international trial attorney.
But students, Matt made some personal choices starting when he was in middle school and high school that changed his life and the life of our entire family forever. Matt started down a path first with recreational marijuana and alcohol, and then in his 20s, when he was clean and sober, he told us that he smoked weed for the first time at 13 to relax, celebrate a victory, or chill out after a tough competition. Later, alcohol was added to the mix. And then during his senior year of high school, Matt suffered a back injury and was given pain pills by his doctor. Bottom line is, over the years, what started with occasional drug and alcohol use turned into full-blown addiction and dependency on drugs. When I look at you, I think of Matt, because he sat right here. Matt never thought that he was going to be an addict. It was just once in a while. He'd tell us that he had control of the drugs. His friends had his back. But the reality was the drugs grew to control Matthew. Everything that he said and did was controlled by the drug use. What started at the age of 13 with weed and alcohol ended at the age of 28 with pills and other illicit drugs. Matt will never celebrate another birthday or a Christmas with our family. He's never going to meet his nieces and his nephew. His entire life changed with his choice to use drugs. Since Matt's death, we've worked with the Florida legislators, and later we established NOPA Pinellas and Matthew's memory to educate students and our community. To date, our NOPE team has spoken to over 250,000 middle and high school students here in Pinellas. We've learned through our journey the importance of educating students on what the drugs are and the consequences of their use. And in the end, students, the choices that you make now and in the years ahead regarding whether or not you're going to use will impact your entire life. Last, we've learned addiction impacts not only the individual, but the entire family, their work, and our community. What does an addict look like today? It can look like you as a teenager, can look like a family member in your home, your neighbor, the guy who works at the store, the elderly lady that you pass on the sidewalk. Addiction impacts all of us.
We thank you, Governor and Mrs. DeSantis, legislators, and educators for taking this big step in educating students about the deadly drugs that plague our Florida cities, our entire state, and our nation.
This drug awareness initiative to educate our students gives hope for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Dottie Groover Skipper is also with us today. Her son Mike went to FSU for the music program. He's a very promising student, but struggled with opioid addiction for 13 years. It's a tough road, but support from his mother and 5 stints of rehab got him through those tough times. He's recently celebrated his 1-year anniversary of sobriety. So Dottie, please come up and share your family story.
Thank you, Governor and First Lady, for what you're doing. It is so important to raise awareness. Addiction most often begins with the hope that something out there can instantly fill up an emptiness inside. My son's journey, or rather our family's journey, began in his first semester of college. Mike had received a music scholarship to FSU for his talent in classical guitar. While working his part-time job in Tallahassee, he hurt his back, and one of his friends provided him Vicodin, and that was the beginning of his spiraling down in the opioid addiction world that has lasted 16 years to this day. There are no words, only tears for the pain a parent feels when they have an addicted child, no matter what their child's age is. You taught them to look both ways before crossing the street. You made sure they wore their helmet and buckled their seatbelt. You checked under their bed for monsters, but you never dreamed that the scariest monster would be living inside your child. Once upon a time, as a parent, you can fix it all, but now you can't. You feel lonely and disconnected from everyone, and you are so sad. Only you don't tell anyone. You don't want friends feeling sorry for you or judging you. Instead, you suck it up, put on your brave face, and carry on. This monster, called addiction, consumes your child. Now you feel the monster will kill your child, and you wonder, how does one go about slaying a monster that dwells inside your child? First and foremost, my message is mostly to parents today. Stop beating yourself up. You didn't cause this disease. It is a disease, and there is so much to learn. It's important to reach out for help. Learn how to love your child without enabling their illness. Find safe people in your life who have walked in your shoes and can provide you with the emotional support. And one of the hardest things parents will ever have to do is to let go. Not letting go of your child, but of their illness. Let go of the urge to fix, control, and rescue them. It took me years to realize I was an enabler. And once I fixed that in myself, some things began to happen for the good. Let go of the over-functioning on their behalf, because allowing your child to feel the consequences of their actions will encourage them to seek help. You can't cure your child and you can't control them, but you can influence the outcome. You have to make the hard choices as a parent. Be open to learning and doing new things. Involve professionals to help you navigate the pathway from addiction to recovery. As a believer, I also live in the foundation of prayer and have a war room of prayer warriors who held me up and never, ever, ever allowed me to give up hope. Parents, love and love harder than any pain that you have ever felt. There are millions of families across America living in recovery and leading wonderful, productive lives. Although it may seem like the heartache will never end, it can, and it does for many, and it has for us. I am so very proud of my son Mike and the man he is today. Just last week, as the governor said, he received his 1-year sobriety chip, and he holds a full-time job and is thriving, giving back to others with his musical talent that God gave him, giving back to others who are doing their best to slay the monster. And Mike is so proud that I'm representing him today, and he asked me to please let you know, students, especially those who are on the verge of graduating and going off to school and maybe not have your parents hovering over you. Think twice about things that you've heard here today, and have the courage and the boldness to say no. And he wanted to let you know that it's his faith, his family, his friends, and his recovery community that keep him sober and where he is today. So thank you so much.
So we also have Derek Jenkins. He was an IB student at St. Pete High. When he was caught with marijuana on campus, he was disciplined, moved to another school, got mixed up with the wrong crowd. In 2013, he was driving his motorcycle while drunk. He crashed. He lost both of his eyes and severely damaged his brain in the crash. So he's going to come up and tell his story. Derek?
Let me feel for the microphone real quick.
Right in front of you.
There we go. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yep. All right. Thank you for having me today. And this program that we're all just told about, I think it's an incredible opportunity to really learn about not just substance abuse, but unfortunately the consequences of those substances and how it can affect not just my life, but my family's life, my friends' lives, everyone around me, the community as a whole. Back in 2013, I made the very bad decision to drink and drive. I was on my motorcycle a month after my 21st birthday. At this point in my life, the world was mine. I was on a good path. I was accepted into the IB program at St. Pete High School, graduated class 2011, not through the IB program, got caught up in the wrong crowd, growing up as kids do, but on that same note, kind of continued to not live recklessly, but make reckless decisions. November 5th of 2013, I made the decision. I don't remember. I remember barely any of the year 2013, but it is a day I will never forget. I ran into a construction truck on my motorcycle after drinking and driving, leaving a car show. With that, I physically lost my eyes, sustained a severe traumatic brain injury, which left me in a coma, with an extensive medical bill affecting not just my sister and mom, friends, everyone around me, a spider web of effects that carried on until this day. And with health concerns from that, with the TBI, traumatic brain injury, I will be facing health concerns that challenge me to stay alive on a daily basis for the rest of my life. I say this all to boil it down because I've made one decision. How one decision will impact the rest of my life. I refuse to let it label the rest of my life, but anyone who tells you it wouldn't make you think, what if I had an opportunity or a lesson, a program that could have shown me, made me listen one way or another, what can happen with drinking and driving. I'm sure I can speak for many of us. At least my thought, what are the odds that would ever happen to me? Or a substance abuse overdose. Oh, that would never happen to me, this or that reason. I'm born and raised right here in St. Pete, like I'm sure many of us here. I am the example of what can happen, and I promise you, it's not worth it. What I would give to go back to that day, to just be able to see me now and say, look, Derek, is this worth one night of what I believe to be, quote, fun? No. So I hope this program can enable us to all see the second chance we have before we need to be confronted with that second chance. So with that, thank you everyone for the program that we have set up today, and everyone in attendance, and everyone have a great day.
Okay, I'd also, it's my honor to introduce our Surgeon General for the state of Florida, Dr. Joe Ladapo.
Well, good morning, students. It's taking me back in time to think about when I was in high school, being here in front of you guys. It's really kind of a treat to think about that. Well, so I'll provide a little bit of the medical perspective and also talk about my department's work to support this really wonderful program that the First Lady has championed. So, I won't dance or anything. Drug abuse, substance abuse, I mean, it's just really bad. It's bad for your physical health. It's harmful to your mental health and your mental and emotional development. And it is also a risk factor for lifelong addiction, which is just really tough on people. I've taken care of a lot of patients. Many of the patients I've taken care of in the hospital are there because of, unfortunately, some problem with addiction. So it's just a very tough road to go down, and it's it's so important to do what we can, especially at the age that you guys are at, to try and help you make an informed decision when those pressures to potentially engage or try different substances present themselves. So in our community, in terms of the resources we have to help you with that, parents, of course, that's number one. I remember my parents encouraged us to avoid drugs, and that's the most important component. Your pediatricians, I know your pediatricians have probably talked to you about avoiding drug use and the harms of using drugs. But, it's not enough. I know your teachers, I'm sure, help also, but all of this is not enough. And what else we can do is embodied in this program that the First Lady is championing. So a big part of this program is a peer piece. So there's a component that is about your peers and trying to provide communication that helps you be informed about why it may not be the best decision for you to engage in use of substances. And as I said, as the head of the Department of Health and as part of the Department of Health, we are really extremely excited and honored and supportive of the First Lady, Casey DeSantis, in helping provide resources to schools to support this program. I think that's all I wanted to say. So good luck to you guys, and seriously, yeah.
We'd also now like to welcome Dr. Eric Hall, the Senior Chancellor, Florida Department of Education.
Good morning. I heard I'm in Seminole High. All right, I'm just checking. I want to make sure I was in the right place. So I just want to start by saying this. I want to thank the governor and the First Lady for your leadership in this initiative. I would tell you, as someone who started my career as a teacher, I've been a school administrator, and I've dedicated my career to working in support of schools and students all across the state. But I also want to bring this perspective up as a parent. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. Choices are a part of everything that goes on every single day in your life. And I would tell you, as a parent, the testimonies, the stories that have been shared, it's inspiring, to see your resiliency, and I've heard that term used earlier, Governor, so thank you for that. But these are important conversations because as parents, we love our kids. As educators, as administrators, we care about our students. We want to make sure that you're successful and do the things that are going to empower you for the future and the things that you can do not only for your dreams and your goals, but for the goals and dreams of your families for you. So really thinking about the choices and being able to leverage these resources and tools to help you to understand the facts, the real facts about the choices that you make. Not the opinions of others, not the influence, not the things that are going to potentially put you on a path of danger, a path of not achieving your goals, and not really reaching your full potential. You know, at the department, we are grateful for this effort. We are looking forward to bringing these resources into our schools all across the state and partnering with the Department of Health so that we can support great content, great resources, so that you, your peers, know the facts to empower your future. You know, hopefully as you're confronting choices on a regular basis, understand the resources that are available. I will tell you, as someone who's married to a school social worker, know the team members that are in your school. Empower your peers when you're being faced with tough choices. Know that you have counselors here at the school. You have teachers that can help connect you to the supports that you need. That's part of being a school community. So collectively, as we go forward and we bring these resources into our schools all across this state, we're going to share a message that is, again, it's grounded on facts. It's about empowering you for your future so that you can achieve those goals and dreams for you and your families. And like I said earlier, reach your full potential. So thank you again for your leadership, and I look forward to the great efforts ahead.
I'd also like to recognize the First Lady's been working on these issues for a number of years, worked closely with a lot of law enforcement agencies throughout the state. One of the guys who's really been a great leader and a great ally has been the sheriff of Seminole County over in Central Florida, Dennis Lima. And so it's an honor for me to welcome the Seminole County Sheriff to Seminole High School here in Pinellas County.
Thank you so much for having us, Governor, and thank you for your leadership. I've had the opportunity to work with the Governor and the First Lady, and I'm kind of representing three kind of groups here this morning. One is the Florida sheriffs across the state will kind of believe in the concept and the partnership that we've had that has been extremely unique here with Governor DeSantis and First Lady DeSantis. Second is I had a conversation with Sheriff Bob Galtieri, your sheriff here in Pinellas County, who would normally be here, but he had a scheduling conflict, but I had a conversation with him. And then mostly somebody who's been working in very close proximity to this administration. Governor DeSantis recognized early on that overdose was a crisis in our state and put together a statewide opioid task force by executive order, and that work of that group has done just a remarkable job. And First Lady Casey DeSantis, when I first met her, I was so inspired by her drive, her passion, her willingness to dig in. And I tell you, we could not have a better ambassador for all of the vulnerable populations, whether it's our youth, whether it's people suffering from substance use disorder or mental health. Every time that I talk with you, First Lady, it makes me want to be a better sheriff, a better father, and a better citizen. So thank you for your leadership. You know, the facts, your future is built on the premise that you are prepared, smart enough, and can make a difference by knowing the true facts of the dangers associated with substance use. I think that we know that abstaining or simply saying no is the best strategy because once you start, it is incredibly difficult to stop. But the most recent stats across this country is there's anticipated to be 100,000 U.S. citizens die of a drug overdose in just this year. And unfortunately, with the presence of synthetic opioids, fentanyl, which is 100 times more potent than morphine, 50 times more potent than heroin, and the presence of carfentanil, or a microgram, not even enough to be visible by the human eye, is a lethal, deadly dose. We're seeing this mixed in all types of substances, marijuana, tobacco products, cocaine, and unfortunately, when somebody takes it, they go out and they're gone immediately. This is why we're having record overdose and record overdose deaths. This is 100% preventable. If you can do simple things, two things I want you to remember. One is ask for resources and make sure that you're familiar with the life-saving drug naloxone. It's an opioid antagonist. If you have somebody on this journey around you that's close to you or in your family, you can get it from any pharmacy. It quite literally reverses the effects of the overdose. The second thing I want you to be aware of is a law called the Good Samaritan Law, that if you are ever in proximity of somebody who overdoses and dies or goes unconscious, if you call 911, you don't have to worry about, in most cases, criminal prosecution. We want to save lives, get people revived, to do whatever we can, while at the same time holding drug dealers accountable like never before for selling deadly doses of narcotics. COVID-19 has brought in greater complications of this crisis. Sheltering in place, wearing masks, all of these things have turned people to their substance of choice at greater numbers, but we can fix this with the leadership of our First Lady and our Governor and your effort. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit.
Well, I want to thank everybody for what they've contributed here today, and thank you all. And I would just echo Sheriff Lima. The biggest difference, I think, for your generation when you look at some of these substances is what they're now laced with. When you look at things like fentanyl and these synthetics, you could do what would be considered a non-lethal drug 30 years ago, and that absolutely could end up killing you. And they're putting it in all these different substances now. It's unfortunately coming across our southern border in record numbers, and this is really, really serious. And so just understand, anyone tries to downplay the risk, what you're faced with potentially is more risky than me, my parents, or another thing. And even 15 years ago, when I was prosecuting cases for the Navy, we didn't really see this in the numbers that we see now. So very, very significant. The other thing I would just tell you is when you go on your journey here, and you're going to hopefully all do very well throughout high school and go beyond and pursue your dreams, not everything always breaks your way. There's ups and downs in life. There'll be times when you suffer disappointments and defeats. We all do. And oftentimes you learn from that. But I think the one thing in talking with people over the years who maybe I knew when I was a kid or have had different trials and tribulations is, if you can look in the mirror and say you gave it your all, whatever you're doing, if something doesn't work out, you'll have other opportunities. But I think what really gnaws at people is when they look in that mirror and they know if they just would have applied themselves, or if they just would have gotten the most out of their God-given ability, if they would have made better choices, then they would have been able to do much better. And you can't rewind the clock. You're not going to be able to get, my kids like Back to the Future time machine. That's not real life, unfortunately. And so just understand, you want to go through life where you're satisfied that you gave the effort and that you got the most out of your own ability. And if you do that, I'm confident, look, there's never been more opportunity for young people than what we have right now in the state of Florida. Much better opportunity than when I was coming up your age. So you're going to be able to do a lot of great stuff if you just set your mind to it and you work hard. And then the final thing I will say is, I have a proposal outstanding. We're going to put it in front of the legislature in January. And if we are successful for that, this school year will be the last year for the FSA in the state of Florida. So thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. Thanks.
One second. Okay, there we go. Sorry about the delay there. This was an amazing, amazing event to watch because it speaks to a greater idea that the Democrats don't want anyone figuring out for themselves. You can't blame society. You can't always be making excuses. See, that's the theme of everything the left wants you to believe. The theme of what everybody on the left wants you to believe is that you don't have to take personal responsibility. It's somebody else's fault. It's the racist's fault. Or you just didn't have enough government help. Something else out there is to blame. Let's blame Big Pharma for our problems. Nobody forces anybody to go and open the bottle and take out what's inside and shove it down your gullet. Nobody forces anybody to do that. Doctor can prescribe you whatever he wants to. Victimology, Ed, exactly right. Victimology. Victimology is the key to the leftists' agenda. When you take that away and people start looking in the mirror and saying, if it's a problem, it's ours to fix. This is what's going on in Florida. This is why the left hates Florida. I even had earlier today in this stream somebody calling me an authoritarian because we're going to hold drug dealers accountable. They're just addicts that have not had their consequences catch up with them yet. The first time you smoke weed, your brain changes, meaning the very thing you use to make decisions now is not the thing it was before you smoked the weed. And the more you use it, the more your brain changes. The very tool you're using to make decisions, good, bad, right, wrong, is now compromised. You see, there are liquor stores all over Florida. And there are people who drink a little. There are people who drink a lot. I used to drink more than I do now. But I can walk into a liquor store, walk through the whole thing and go, nothing sounds good, and walk back out. One would say, well, wait a minute, how can that be? At one time, you really drank a lot. Well, yeah. And at one time, the consequences of those decisions caught up with me. Thank God I never had a DUI and I never hurt anybody. You see, this whole idea of authority over yourself gets misconstrued. I understand what you're saying, Ed, is there's a lot of people out there who want, ultimate autonomy, and they don't believe in drug laws, and they don't believe in speeding limits, and they don't believe in anything like that because they think that's authoritarian. But when society gets together and says, you know what? We have enough evidence now that the people pushing these drugs are doing a greater damage to society than the freedom is a benefit. 7 years sober. Congratulations, First Talk. You see, people who have gone through this look back at drug addicts defending their drug behavior against quote-unquote freedom and liberty, and they just shake their heads because they knew that was them before the consequences. Now I'm going to bring up a picture. Who's heard the story of a guy who just ruined his life in California? A guy with the greatest possible blessings you could imagine. A young man who'd never even gotten a parking ticket in his life. This young man on the left never even got a parking ticket in his life. Out of trouble, did it the right way, incredibly talented athlete, starting in the National Football League, millions and millions of dollars, nice home, brand new Corvette, and in one moment, he went out, drank too much, got in his car, his beautiful brand new Corvette, driving 156 miles an hour slams into an innocent woman with her dog, propelling the vehicles 500 feet down the road. Bystanders said that they could not get to the woman because of the damage, and the woman and her dog burned to death in the fire. He survived. The girl that was with him in the car was injured. His life is over because of a choice. Now, was this the first time Mr. Ruggs had probably ever drank and drive? No. Was it the first time he ever was speeding? No. But looking back now, and I'm sure he's, doing a lot of reminiscing. The guy's looking at almost 46 years in prison. He will never play in the NFL again. Never. Even Michael Vick made a comeback. This guy will never make a comeback. This is the point about drugs. I could tell you some personal stories. Some very, very personal ones. Members of my family that their whole lives never acknowledged that the real issue was their choices. I thank God every day. I thank God every day that I was able to finally look in the mirror and say that the biggest problem in my life wasn't big pharma. It wasn't society. It wasn't that, all of these unfair things had happened to me. Poor little me. It was my choice. It was my choice. It was their choice. And when we finally have a government that allows this to be put out as the standard and say, you know what? If you get addicted and you have problems in your life and you make poor choices, you're going to be held accountable for it because it's up to you. Way to go, Ed. Nice job. That's a long time. So anyone out there thinking that it's just authoritarian drug laws, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. And if you want to see the results of just letting anybody and everybody do anything they want at any time, please go to the West Coast. Go look at LA. Go look at San Francisco. Go look at Portland. Go look at Minneapolis. Go look at, I would counsel, go live in South Colombia, down around Cali, near the border of Brazil. If you want to see what true lawlessness is like, where anybody can really do anything, they buy and sell kids down there all the time. If you want that, if you want to see what that results in, everybody loves to watch the Westerns on TV and think, gosh, man, if we could just live in the wild, wild West, or we could just go back to, the Revolution times and live in this country when there was no law. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Now, I'm going to bring up an article here I was working on for a video that a lot of people would read and they think it's a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. U.S. Marines deny British commandos dominated them during war games. So there was these war games out in the Mojave, right? And there was this joint forces group made up of, let me see here, a drill. The Royal Navy said an allied force composed of UK, US, Canadian, Dutch, and Emirati units had been pitted against a highly equipped US Marine Corps adversary, and apparently they wiped the floor with them. Now, some people would say, well, wait a minute. That's horrible. That's evidence that our Marines are just sad sacks. No. This is great news. You know why this is great news? This is great news because the Marines now have a new standard. They now have a new standard. You see, when we, in our lives, when we're doing the best we can, all we know is the best we know, right? We think, well, this is the best I know, and I'm doing my very best to achieve it. You never really know though, until you get into a combat situation, if the standard you're training to, meaning the standard you're living to, is the best that can be. So thank you for being here, Iris. I very much appreciate it. It's the same exact thing. See, these Marines that got clobbered by these commandos, nobody died. Nobody died, but now they have all this new information. All this new information, this new standard to train to. A brand new standard to train to. And just like in our lives, like with the new Free Republic of Florida, which is why I bring this up, there's a new standard. There's a new standard being set. The people that rebelled against the king back in the 1700s and 1600s, they would have never been able to deal with anything like Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is far more tyrannical than the king ever was. So we even have to be better than them. We even have to be better than those people who rebelled against the crown. The King of England was nowhere near as authoritarian as Washington, D.C. is. So we have a new standard in Florida. We're just going to have to be smarter and stronger and better every single day. And we're not going to have room for addicts. We're going to need all hands on deck. Being an addict does not make you a better soldier. Being an addict does not make you a better father. Being an addict does not make you a better asset to your family. Being an addict does not make you better at your job. Being an addict does not make you better at anything. You may be able to fake it. Some people would say, well, I'm a better this, that, or the other. I do this better when I'm drunk, or I do this better when I'm stoned, or I do this better when I'm high. It's all fake. It's all make-believe. Because there's going to come a point in time when your supply is going to run out. And guess what? When you don't have that crutch, guess what? People who are counting on you, they're not going to be able to. And then they're going to realize, oh, this guy was crutching this whole time. This guy was using this crutch. And now that he doesn't have it, he can't deal. He can't handle things. What would happen, drug addict, if your supply ran out? And I'm speaking mostly to weed smokers out there who believe that THC isn't a drug, that believe that weed isn't addictive. It absolutely is, and THC is a drug, and THC does change the brain. What would happen in a survival situation if you didn't have your weed? And you had to go a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks without it. You're saying you would be the exact same person? If you would be the exact same person, okay, sorry, microphone issue. If you would be the exact same person, if somebody would say, I can go 6 or 8 weeks or 10 weeks without weed and it wouldn't affect me at all, then why are you smoking weed? Smoking anything is inherently bad for the lungs. You see, they can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. I'm actually one of those people, Gloria, believe it or not. I can't handle the stuff. It's so bad for me. If somebody 3 cars ahead is smoking marijuana on the highway, I can smell it. And Jem, I'm sorry. You know what? I have a story much like that, but my mother. You know, I don't know what do you bam bam yes initially, but eventually become more generic, more focused, and think and recall with more clarity. You mean after you get off drugs, right, bam bam? After you get off drugs. A lot of people think that when they start drugs, when really, you see, they think they're thinking more clearly, but really their brain is so compromised, they have no comprehension of how compromised they are, and people around them just roll their eyes and back away slowly. There are people that swear on, stacks of Bibles that drugs make them better. The reason they believe that is because their own brain is telling them that. Their own compromised brain is telling them that. That's the problem. Everyone else around sees how pathetic they've become. And most people just don't want to be the one to tell them. That's what really happens. And so addicts get around other addicts, and then they self-reinforce. And that's the other thing too. Exactly right about the cop. Is the lip would curl up. These addicts, they get so desensitized to the marijuana smoke, they don't realize how they stink. How their clothes stink, the upholstery stinks, the car stinks. Everybody can smell it. Everybody knows. And then when the cops say, we know there's drugs in the car, they say, oh, the cop's just corrupt. There's no way he could have known. You stink. You literally walk around and you don't smell it because you smell it all the time. That's what a lot of drug addicts don't get. A lot of pill poppers don't realize how tiny their pupils get. Did you know that? When you pop Vicodin and you pop a Percocet and all that kind of stuff, and you do it over a long period of time, it's a real super easy way to tell if anybody's on pills. Usually they'll walk around with some ridiculous grin on their face all day, and look at their pupils. They'll be tiny, tiny, tiny little slit, tiny little pinpoints. You see, the lemon juice, it might take the taste away, but you can tell. You can absolutely tell. Because sometimes drug addicts get so strung out and so focused on the drugs, they forget to bathe. They forget to bathe. And they might go 2 or 3 days and just hot box and wake and bake and all this stuff. And they literally, you can get a contact high from just being around them. And their regular sense of smell goes out the door. Their regular sense of smell goes out the door. Also, drug addicts, like pill poppers, the ones that are popping the opioids, their hearing goes. They'll automatically start talking louder, and they won't realize it. So, pinpoint pupils, always smiling, always happy, talking loud, and also tons of energy. You'll see people doing things that they shouldn't be able to do for their age or their build. This is the reality. Because the drug addicts themselves don't see it, because they surround themselves with other drug addicts. And they're all blind. But those who are sober are just like, wow. You just got to get away from them. And eventually their supply runs out. Eventually their dealer gets busted. Eventually they need to get stronger and stronger versions of the same drug. Vicodin leads to Percocet. Percocet leads to Dilaudid. The marijuana that was smoked back in the 70s at Woodstock, you took anything of the modern era back there, it damn near kill those people. It would damn near kill those people. It's so powerful and so potent that you can live in massive tent cities by the side of the road after having been evicted from your homes out west. And you'll be perfectly fine as long as you have your high, as long as you have your drugs. And that's what this was really all about. The facts. And look, I'm not saying that Florida doesn't have drug addicts. Believe me, there's a lot of them. But we put them in prison. We put them in prison. Somebody just brought that up. I wasn't even going to talk about it. Gate Smasher. The Native Americans, when the Columbian Exchange, how many people out there know what the Columbian Exchange was? It was starting in the late 1400s when Columbus arrived in North America. And people started going back and forth. All of a sudden, the Native Americans started dying off in droves. And people like, well, it was because of this and because of that and because of the other. You notice that when Europeans, the smallpox blankets, that's the big story. But that doesn't explain all of it. You see, smallpox is a disease that you get from being in close quarters with other people. That's how it spreads. And the Native Americans were pretty spread out over a large wilderness. So for it to run as rampant as it did doesn't explain all of the deaths of the Native Americans. I can tell you what does, though. You see, the Native Americans were smoking weed long before we got here. And when you smoke and you compromise your lungs over a long period of time, and the kids, the little kids, all the way up to, there were no laws back then saying you can only be this old. They were exposed to long-term inhaling of smoke in the lungs and compromised lungs. And that had been generational for the Native Americans. You see, that destroys your immune system. Your lungs are one of the first lines of your immune system. You breathe in good air. Alveoli act like scrubbers. The carbon dioxide and the poisons that are in your blood, you then exhale. Well, when you lose the ability to do that, and do that well, any new problem that gets introduced becomes fatal. You see, nobody explains why, well, wait a minute, when the Europeans went to Asia, why didn't a whole bunch of Asians die off? When the Europeans went to Africa, why didn't all the Africans die off? You see, when Columbus came here to North America, they died off. Why? Because they were smokers. They were marijuana smokers. Marijuana compromises your immune system and makes you very susceptible to colds. And makes you very sick and sickly. And this is something that they're not telling you about the COVID stats. How the vast majority were smokers. When the initial wave hit, it was the obese, it was those who smoked, those who vaped. A lot of elderly people came from an era where they smoked for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So it's, nobody wants to deal. Right. Been around COVID-infected people and didn't get the Rona. Bingo. Nobody wants to talk about this reality. Nobody wants to talk about the facts. And the facts are this. And look, I'm not a perfect individual. I've made huge mistakes in my life. Huge mistakes. But thank God I haven't hurt people permanently like Mr. Ruggs did. But looking back, letting all that go, I am way healthier now than I was in my late 30s. I'm 52, going to be 52 here pretty quick. I am way healthier now than I was in my late 30s. Stronger in just about every possible measure. Because of decisions. Just better and different decisions. And believe me, if it's out there, I've tried it. I was in the military. You have access to all sorts of stuff. I was in the military in South America. You have access to all sorts of stuff. Looking back, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the people who are kids now, when they start to become adults, they were just speaking to high school kids, when those kids are 27, 28, 29 years old, and they look back at this time, I'll tell you what, Cat Stevens, I'll tell you what, you know what the deal is with the military background? From my time in the military, no excuses. No excuses were acceptable. You either show up and you are to the standard that is prescribed, or it's on you. That's what I took from the military. Nobody's going to do it for you. You either show up and you get the job done, or it's on you. That's the job of the team. Everybody is responsible for themselves. Accountability, Bam Bam. Exactly right. That's what got me through. And that's why this particular news conference was so important. You see, the First Lady was diagnosed with breast cancer like literally 5 minutes ago. She'd have every right to be at home and doing nothing and feeling sorry for herself. And here she is out with her oldest child championing the idea of accountability. Championing the idea of, if it's going to be up to me, taking charge of her own life. You know, there are dietary choices. One of the biggest choices, I'll be honest with you, the biggest choice that you can make that can change your life is the things you tolerate from the people around you. People sometimes attack my channel because I redact things and I don't allow certain topics to fester in the comments section, and I just don't allow certain people to get a platform or to take hold. When you can start to hold a standard up for those you allow around you and those you allow in your inner circle and the behaviors that you allow around you and in your inner circle, that will change a lot. That will change you. You see over here on the left, you see this guy who's giving the first lady a hug right here? Did you hear what he said? He said, "You inspire me to be a better father, a better man, and a better police officer. You inspire me to hold a higher standard up for myself." And she just about broke down and cried. Some people saw it. Some people in the comments saw it and said, "Oh my goodness." Because she just about broke down in tears when he said that. And if they could get that out to every high school student out there, hold up a better and higher standard for yourself. Don't allow people like that around you. If they're excuse makers, if they want to blame Big Pharma, if they want to blame the cops, if they want to blame, authoritarians, or they want to blame this and blame that, get those people out of your life. It'd be real easy, and I've had a problem with Google and YouTube. They've set a really super high standard for the things I can and things I can't talk about and the ways I can and can't talk about them here on this platform. I could whine and cry and piss and moan about the strike that I got from covering the president, but I'll tell you what, the biggest off-putting thing about Donald Trump to me was his continual excuse making. And it's unfair, and they don't treat me fairly, and life isn't fair, and blah, 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 and this, and this, and the other thing, and this other thing. That's the biggest off-putting thing to me about him. And I've never seen the governor of the state of Florida ever say, "Oh, this is just unfair. It's just too unfair. They just treat me so badly, and it's just so unfair." I cannot handle people like that. I cannot handle excuse makers. I cannot handle finger pointers and blamers and whiners. And I just can't handle it. I can't have people like that around me. So I didn't mean to get this off on another tangent, but I think it's all tied together. It really is. It's what makes Florida. It's the essence of why Florida. Why Florida? Because I'll tell you what, these old folks down here, they are not excuse makers. They're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. We're old. Oh, this hurts. Oh, that hurts. Oh, I should just stay in bed all day. Oh, just give me another bottle of something to make it all go away. Not the case. Not the case. You should see the amount of elderly people that get up and they're out at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and they're weeding their gardens and they're trimming the hedges and they're painting their houses and they're walking their dogs and they're out and they're living their lives. And I'm sure they do have, and you could, bad knees and bad elbows and recovering from broken hips and canes. I tell you what, they go play golf. They go play tennis. Like I said, I'm a youngin'. I'm 52, going to be 52 here. At 52, and that's the thing in Florida, at 52, I'm a youngin'. I don't even qualify to get into any of the communities, the 55 and over communities. Don't even qualify for that. You know, it's, you're a kid. I think medical marijuana is a bad idea. Anytime you say, I'm going to take a substance and I'm going to use it to fix a problem in my life, that is the wrong answer. They used to prescribe medical alcohol. You know that, right? They used to prescribe cocaine tooth drops. They used to have heroin in the pharmacy. The stats. Believe me, this is not a new thing. You used to be able to get marijuana, heroin, cocaine, all these things in the pharmacy long before Big Pharma was ever around. In fact, you can go to St. Augustine, Florida. Anybody who visits St. Augustine, Florida, go to the old general store and jail tour. Go to the old general store and jail tour. When you go in the old general store, you will see what they had available in the pharmacies 150 years ago. They would hand you all sorts of narcotics. They've been around long before there was OxyContin. Anytime you say, I'm going to substitute a substance for a real fix that's a lot harder, it's a bad idea. Look, my days would be super happy if I could just sit and drink rum by the pool all day. I mean, whose life wouldn't be great? Go out in sunshine in Florida and, you know, the beautiful trees and the warm weather and the rum and the girls in bikini. Yeah, that's nice. But you can't use it as a crutch. You can't have it be the fix. This whole medical marijuana thing, that's not new. That was tried. That was tried. At one time, people said, you know what? Handing out a bunch of drugs to everyone on demand all the time is not a fix. It just actually kicks the can down the road. It kicks the can down the road. That's all it does. So, anyway, 74 minutes. I should probably stop at this point. But that was the whole point of this, talking to these high school students. Saying, we got your back, and we've been there. And that's why the governor did it. That's why the governor did it. He said, you know what? Here's a bunch of people who've been right where you are. Here's a bunch of people who've been right where you are. And they've had every excuse to make the wrong choices. And some of them did, and they paid the price. Don't make the wrong decision, and you won't have to pay that price. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Have a great day, and we will see you guys next time.